thought the seminar was really interesting. To my mind, managers have a really key role within the business. They have to be able to sense the dynamic of any team that they're working in and spot high performers as well as low performers. And then they have to be able to deal with both ends of the spectrum. So they have to be able to make sure that high performers feel that they're challenged and they're going in the right direction, maybe through appraisals, but they also have to be able to manage poor performance through performance improvement programs. So a business needs to make sure that they have the right skills and training in place in order to run those programs. We've given loads of training to businesses and their managers in the past on performance management programs to make sure that businesses do well and recruit talent, as well as making sure that their low performers improve their performance. The managers also need to be able to deal with disciplinary and grievance issues which pop up on a day-to-day basis in order to make sure that their teams are functioning properly. Perhaps something that's often forgotten is recruitment. So managers have to make sure that the business comes across really well in any interviews that they're conducting. In order to recruit the most talented individuals, managers need to make sure they have the training in place to interview properly. So they need to make sure they're asking the right questions, but also that they're not asking the wrong questions. So we've given loads of training to businesses in the past on discrimination issues in recruitment. But ultimately, I think managers are key in motivating their teams, in managing day-to-day issues that come up, as well as good performance and poor performance, and making sure that they recruit the right people for the job.
The talent management seminar was really great, really interesting topic for all of the companies that we act for. What I found was very interesting about it is the first speaker talking about mapping talent and how managing talent doesn't just mean focusing on the top people, your key players and your rising stars. It also means dealing with the underperforming people, and if you map them, if you do a talent map on performance and potential, and map all of the people in your team or in your organisation on how they're performing and perhaps on either potential or commitment, you've got your rising stars in the top right hand corner, but in the bottom corner you've got the underperformers, the people who aren't committed and who aren't performing. And if you don't deal with those people, and generally they will be known in most organisations, we find working with HR teams, everybody knows who those people are, the uncommitted people, and the key, your star players are going to see those people and see that they're getting the same amount and they're not doing as much work, and they're not going to feel recognised and they're not going to feel rewarded. And you might find that you lose your star players just by ignoring performance management. And it is a difficult process, and it's a difficult conversation saying to somebody, actually you're not really performing, but it has to be dealt with or you're going to lose your best staff. And we find that sometimes we get, in the extreme case, we get clients coming to us and saying that something's happened, for instance a minor misconduct or maybe a redundancy situation, and they say, well, this person here has never really performed and we want to get rid of them. And it's much harder to try and deal with performance issues if you've left it for years and years and never dealt with it. So in the extreme case, I had a client come in and said, this person's not doing very well, this woman in admin, and we really want to deal with it now. And I asked how long she'd been there, and he said 10 years, which it just makes it very difficult to try and manage those issues then, because the employee can reasonably say, well, I've always done it this way and nobody's ever told me it wasn't good enough. So the key message, I think, is when you're dealing with talent, don't ignore the underperformers as well. Have your performance management policy in place and actually implement it, and get your team leaders, if it's a larger organisation, to implement it, because just having a policy in the handbook is not going to be enough. You need to deal with these issues, and even though they're not nice conversations, you need to deal with the underperformance and get the training in place, or have a performance improvement plan to bring them up to the right standard in order to keep your rising stars and keep those people happy.
So one of the key themes that was discussed today was incentivising staff and getting the most out of talented individuals. And one way to achieve that is to have financial drivers in place, whether that be a bonus or a commission scheme. So an effective way to deal with that issue is to have a look at the contracts and policy documents that are in place, which govern the relationship, ensure that there are clear objective and subjective standards, and making sure that everyone knows what the expectations are, and ensuring that the mechanisms that are in place are flexible depending on the needs of the business and the circumstances.
Employee engagement and reward is a really important topic, especially in today's economic climate, where it can be difficult to find the budget to give employees bonuses and pay rises. So often employers have to be a bit more creative about how they reward staff. Some of our clients have been really innovative in the ways that they've done that. For example, one client designed an app for iPhones, so employees can click on it and get updates about the firm and what's happening. They found that works really well in a big organisation where there are lots of different sites that employees work at, so sometimes it can be hard to get information out to them. But it doesn't have to be something as complicated as that. It can be just simple things. Often praise works really well. Like I say, the simple things that actually don't cost anything at all, but employees really appreciate. It's also important to consider the new employee ownership rules that are going to come in. The government's been consulting on these and has announced this week that it is going to go ahead with the scheme. Basically, it's a scheme whereby employees give up certain employment rights, such as unfair dismissal, in return for shares. So that's really important to bear that in mind when it is implemented.